to have their budget passed and issued to them directly. I would like to implore the leadership of the National Assembly to ensure that the budget I laid before here today, which includes those of the government-owned enterprises, be returned to the presidency when passed. The current practice, where some committees of the National Assembly purport to pass budgets for government-owned enterprises which are at variance with the budgets sanctioned by me and communicate such directly to the MDAs, is against the rules and needs to stop, please. Nigeria requires okay, it is still my time. It is still my time. Nigeria requires a huge outlay of resources to close current infrastructure gaps and boost its economic performance. Government will develop projects that are good candidates for public-private partnership by their nature for private and sector participation. Distinguished senators, honorable members, ladies and gentlemen, over the course of this administration, we have embarked on a number of reforms in the public finance management space. These reforms are bearing fruits, and we have seen some of the benefits, the return to a predictable January to December fiscal year for the federal government of Nigeria budget. Earlier this year, I was briefed of the impressive performance of the Nigeria in the Open Budget Survey as the third best or most improved country in the world, matching the global average score in budget transparency and exceeding the global public participation. I commend the Budget Office of the Federation and the Supervising Ministry of Finance and National Planning, the National Assembly leadership, the relevant appropriation and finance committees, as well as non-state actors who have worked tirelessly in pushing for greater transparency and accountability in our budget process. We need to sustain and institutionalize the gains of these reforms. To this end, I have directed the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning to immediately work on mainstreaming these reforms and work with the National Assembly on passing an organic budget law, which I hope to assent to before the end of this administration. The government notes with dismay the crisis that has paralyzed activities in the public universities in the country. We expect the staff of these institutions to show a better appreciation of the current state of affairs in the country. In the determined effort to resolve the issue, we have provided a total of 470 billion naira in the 2023 budget from our constrained resources for revitalization and salary enhancement in the tertiary institutions. Distinguished senators and honorable members, it is instructive to know that today government alone cannot provide the resources required for funding tertiary education. In most countries, the cost of education is jointly shared between the government and the people, especially at the tertiary level. It is imperative, therefore, that we introduce a more sustainable model of funding tertiary education. The government remains committed to the implementation of agreements reached with staff union within available resources. This is why we have remained resolute that we will not sign any agreement that we would be unable to implement. Individual institutions would be encouraged to keep faith with any government reached in due course to ensure stability in the educational sector. Government is equally committed to improving the quality of education at other levels. Recently, we implemented various incentives aimed at motivating and enhancing teachers' development in our schools. In the health sector, the government intends to focus attention on equipping existing hospitals and rehabilitating infrastructure. Emphasis will also be on local production of basic medicines and vaccines. As human capital is the most critical resource for national development, our overall policy thrust is to expand our investment in education, health, and social protection. To harness the potentials of all Nigerian women and enable them to productively contribute to the economy, we will continue to prioritize women's empowerment programs across various MDAs in 2023. Government is very concerned about the high food prices in the country. Various measures are being implemented to address structural factors underlying the issue. We will also step up current efforts aimed at boosting food production and distribution in the country. You will recall our efforts in improving production of fertilizer, rice, maize, cassava, among other initiatives. Government is not unaware of the challenges confronting the manufacturing sector. We will ensure effective implementation of policy measures aimed at positioning the manufacturing sector to generate more foreign exchange in the near future. We are also committed to improving the business environment to stimulate local and foreign investment. We ratified the Safe Schools Declaration in 2019. We remain committed to the effective implementation of our Safe Schools policy. A total of 15.2 billion naira has been specifically provided in the 2023 budget to scale up current measures to provide safer and conducive learning environment in our schools. The government remains firmly committed to the security of life, property, and investment across the country. Accordingly, defense and internal security continue to be accorded top priority in 2023. Current efforts to properly equip and motivate our valiant personnel in the armed forces, police, and paramilitary units will be sustained. I assure you, insecurity, especially banditry and kidnapping, will be significantly curtailed before the end of this administration. We will redouble our efforts to ensure we leave a legacy of a peaceful, prosperous, and secure nation. Mr. Senate President, Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable members of the National Assembly, let me conclude my address today by again expressing my deep appreciation for your enormous support, patriotic zeal, and cooperation in our efforts to accelerate the socio-economic development of our country and improve the lives of our people. I appreciate the efforts and the commitment of the leadership and staff of the Federal Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning, especially the Budget Office of the Federation, who have worked hard to achieve early submission of the 2023 appropriation bill. The 2023 budget proposal is a product of interagency collaboration, extensive stakeholder consultation, and productive engagements. I would therefore like to acknowledge the efforts of the media, the organized private sector, civil society organizations, and our development partners for their contributions in the process of preparing the budget. Considering the challenging situation in our country presently, we must continue to cooperate and collaborate to ensure fiscal stability, macroeconomic stability, and smooth transition to the incoming administration. This administration remains resolutely committed to our goals of improving the living standards of our people and effective delivery of public services. Distinguished and honorable members of the National Assembly, although no single government can solve all the problems of a country during its own tenure, I have no doubt that you share our aspiration. The 2023 transition budget is designed to address critical issues and lay a solid foundation for the incoming administration. Excuse me. It is with great pleasure, therefore, that I lay before this distinguished joint session of the National Assembly the 2023 proposal of the Federal Government of Nigeria. I thank you most sincerely for your attention. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
By President Muhammadu Buhari, the final budget presentation, the 8th. It's tagged the Budget of Fiscal Sustainability and Transition. The President believes that based on the parameters and fiscal assumptions in the MTF, the revenue generation should hit 16.87 trillion naira. From that figure, 1.92 trillion should come from oil, while taxes should generate 2 trillion naira and more. That's a 20.15 trillion naira budget. That's the 2023 appropriation. The recurrent expenditure is expected to be 8.27 trillion naira. Capital expenditure 5.15 trillion naira. Debt servicing 6.31 trillion naira. The President took his time to speak about ASU and expects ASU to show appreciation of the current economic situation in the country. The budget has now been laid and he's enjoying a handshake with the leaders of the National Assembly, the Senate President and the Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Distinguished and honorable colleagues, the next item on our order paper is the vote of thanks by the Right Honorable Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
His Excellency MUHAMMADU BUHARI, GCFR President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Professor Yemi Oshibajo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, GCON, and Vice President of the Federal Republic, the Chief Justice of the Federation, Deputy President of the Senate, and Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, Principal Officers of both the Senate and the House, distinguished Senators and Honorable Members of the House of Representatives, Your Excellencies, the Executive Governors here present, the National Chairman of all political parties, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, the Chief of Staff to the President, Mr. Boss Mustafa, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. Please allow me at this point to adopt the remainder of the protocol as already established by the Senate President. On behalf of the National Assembly, I thank the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency MUHAMMADU BUHARI, GCFR, for coming today to present the 2023 Appropriation Bill for parliamentary consideration and approval. As many of our guests may have noticed, we are here in a makeshift environment whilst the main chambers of the National Assembly undergoes extensive renovation. I can say that many of you are not as comfortable as you ordinarily would be, but please take us as you find us. I hope that this budget for this year has accommodated the completion of the chambers. Today's presentation is historic because it is the last such presentation by President MUHAMMADU BUHARI. It is also the last time the 9th Assembly will convene to receive the President for this purpose. We are once more reminded of the finite nature of public service and the obligation to make the most of our time to deliver on our promises to the Nigerian people. It is often said that it's not how well you start, but how strong you finish. We intend here in the 9th Assembly to finish very strong. I assure you the National Assembly will prioritize this bill and ensure it is passed before the end of the year, as is the practice of the 9th Assembly. However, we will not, in the quest for timely passage, fail to do the due diligence expected of us by the Nigerian people. The reforms to the budget process initiated in the 9th Assembly have helped streamline the appropriations process and the oversight system. We have set a standard for others to match or answer for. This is to the credit of all those who worked to achieve these outcomes, particularly the senators and the honorable members. I have often said that a budget reflects priorities. National security, healthcare, education, public infrastructure, and human capital development are the priorities we have pursued in the 9th Assembly. Every appropriation act we have considered and passed has reflected these priorities to different degrees. The 2023 Appropriation Act will be a budget of consolidation, our last best opportunity to ensure that ongoing projects across the country are completed before the end of the administration. Of course, government is a continuum, and it will fall to our successors in office to continue the development initiatives of this administration and see them to completion. However, though governance continues despite government changes, priorities may not remain the same. As such, we must endeavor to see to it that the priorities and projects we have prioritized are adequately funded and fully implemented as we continue to do the work we have been elected to do until the last moment of our tenure. Mr. President, permit me to convey the disquiet in the House of Representatives arising from the reports of a massive decline in the volume of crude oil exports due primarily to theft and diversion by criminal elements. It is the sense of the House of Representatives that those engaged in these activities are agents of economic sabotage, determined to bring our country to its knees. Therefore, our position is that their actions constitute treason against our country, for which they and their enablers, whoever they may be, must be held accountable to the fullest extent permitted by law. Nigerians no longer want to hear about crude oil theft. The question has now become, what are we doing about it? Therefore, we are urging a swift and systemic overhaul of the systems in place to protect the country's oil and gas resources. Evidently, the arrangements in place are no longer adequate. As such, there is an obvious need for improvements to stop the loss of income occasioned by this ongoing sabotage. This is especially so at this time when the conditions and circumstances of our national finances require significant borrowing to finance government operations, sustain investments in infrastructure and national security, and improve the living conditions of the Nigerian people. It is noteworthy that Mr. President, the Senate President, and now my good self, Speaker of the House, without comparing notes, dwelled extensively on this subject. This underscores its importance and imperative to act, and act quickly. As we consider the 2023 appropriation bill, I wish to remind the heads of ministries, departments, and executive agencies that the National Assembly expects thorough accounting for previous appropriations, disbursements, and expenditures. Where such accounts are not forthcoming, we will demand them, and we will exercise the full authority of Parliament to hold to account those who fail to provide the records we need to make informed decisions on the appropriation bill. This is a priority for us as we wind down and begin compiling our service records for history and as a guide to those who will continue from where we stop. Just as the Ninth Assembly has reformed the appropriations process to ensure timely budget passage, we also intend to leave a legacy of transparency and accountability as a standard for the future. I thank His Excellency, President MUHAMMADU BUHARI, GCFR, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa, the Budget Office, Honorable Ministers, and all those who contributed to drafting this appropriation bill. The National Assembly will build on your efforts to deliver an appropriation act that provides real solutions to national problems, unlocks economic potential, secures our country, and brings a future we can all look forward to and be proud of. Finally, let me appreciate the clerk to the National Assembly, Architect Olatunde Ojo, and the entire management and staff whose efforts have made this joint session a resounding success. May God keep and guide us all, and God bless our Federal Republic.
Distinguished honorable members, National Anthem.
broadcast of the 2023 appropriation bill presentation by President Muhammadu Buhari, tagged Budget of Fiscal Sustainability and Transition. It's a 20.15 trillion naira document. We now return to our regular programming. Thanks for watching.